I live every day because you really don't know when it is your last day. And we
Yes.
are all one cancer diagnosis, one accident, one tragedy away from a totally different life. And and this is what so many of these survivors that I am so blessed to know, right? The job is so hard. Like, going to funerals is not fun. Going to funerals for 30-year-olds with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old is really not fun. But like the benefit, the blessing that I get or that we get as an organization and a community to know these people is life-changing. They never sweat the small stuff. They didn't care, right? They're going to sit on the ground. They're going to play with their kid because they don't know how much time they have left. And they live life a completely different way.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Vision Builders, the show about freedom, what it is, what it takes to create it, and share it, and the age-old practice of leveraging other people's hindsight to bring clarity to our own developing stories. And I'm really excited today to have with me on the call a good friend, longtime just warrior and protector of the people, supporter of the people, Heather Salazar. Heather, welcome to Vision Builders.
Thank you so much for having me, too.
Well, just because I love transparency, this is a clutch play for us because there were some things that were going on schedule-wise. I'm so glad though that we got you on now, but you showed up with short notice. But I'm excited because it's you, and I know it's going to be great anyway. And for those of you who don't know Heather, Heather runs an organization called Pink Ribbon Girls. And obviously, Heather, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about what that is. But just from my perspective, let me tell you, I think what it means is people who are going through their hardest times can often get very narrow focused as to where help might be coming from. And here Pink Ribbon comes along when people are going through cancer treatment, supporting their families, their babies, through the whole process. And from my perspective, it's a real gift to know that something like that exists in the world, specifically in my community. I want to back up a little bit before we get into that, because I know that you can go on about that.
Right, for sure.
But I want to talk a little bit about how, like, this is a big mantle. This is a big responsibility. You wear it well, but why you? How did this happen? Where did all this come from?
So I thought that I was going to solve generational poverty. That's where I thought my gift was. I liked working with inner-cited kids. I had a passion for that in the community, a reading program before PRG. It's just kind of where my passion was. And cancer might be easier than generational poverty, by the way. I don't even know. But when I had moved home, my husband was in the military. We got married very young. We moved home because we wanted to raise our family next to my parents. And we wanted them to have their grandparents' support and things like that. And we had 2 small children. Came home. I was a stay-at-home mom. I did some part-time speaking in the schools as far as kind of social impact and empowering young girls to believe in themselves and make character-based decisions. Then we had Kara. So at this point, I was still finishing my school. I was at Wright State full-time, taking full credit hours. And my mom's neighbor was a midwife who delivered this sweet little baby. I'm going to tell you the raw version, kind of. And so she was looking for a home for this baby. And truthfully, I contacted 4 to 5 people that I knew were struggling with infertility. Now, you know me too. I would have 50 kids, but Steve, on the other hand, was sort of good with 3. And I called them, and I felt like, without saying so many words, they had sort of an issue with the color of her skin, to be honest. That's what I think. And so then I decided I didn't like those people too much. And I came home and I couldn't sleep for 3 nights. I mean, I was just up all night thinking about this young mom battling stage 4 cancer and looking for a home for her 8-month-old baby. And so on the 3rd night, Steve's like, "Why aren't you sleeping? What's going on? Is it school?" I'm like, "I think we're supposed to adopt this baby, Steve." And he's like, "Oh my word, Heather. Kara is 12 months old." And I said, "Just meet the mom. Please just meet the mom." And so we called the mom, and she wanted to meet in Meyer because she could get there on the bus line. And so we met her. She comes walking out, and she is like just this ball full of energy and this bright pink wig. And she was just blunt. She's just like, "I need somebody that's going to take care of my baby. that is different than how I was raised. I was raised in 17 different foster care homes. I rode home from my treatment on the RTA bus from cancer. And that was it. You know, Steve well enough to know his heart melted in a puddle. The next day we got an attorney. And 5 weeks later, Lexi, we had full legal custody of Lexi. And then we took her mom to treatment for the following year. Full disclosure, the uneducated part of me thought, why did this young person get breast cancer? Was it her lifestyle? How does someone that's 23 years old get breast cancer? I never in a million years thought it could be me. I was, you know, immune to that and whatever. So we spent the next year taking her to treatment. It was hard. It was hard to see someone not supported, that sick. It was hard. And she passed away 1 week after she turned 24. So 24 years old, and she dies of metastatic breast cancer. And we spent the next year getting Lexi adjusted. She had some neglect issues. We went to a therapist, trying to get our family adjusted. She had some food insecurity issues. And so a year after that, she would finally stay with my mom and dad. And so Steve and I went away for our anniversary, and I did my first ever self-breast exam. Lexi's mom always said, you have to do it. Young people can get breast cancer. So she had been gone a year and I'd still never done a self-breast exam. Mm-hmm. And I did my first ever self-breast exam, found a lump and wasn't worried. Isn't that hilarious? I wasn't worried. I was like, this can't happen to me. There's no way God would let Lexi lose 2 moms to breast cancer. I wouldn't take care of this mom and get sick. Like, I'm not even worried about it. And Steve was like, you better go get that checked out. So Monday I went to my OB, Tuesday biopsy, Wednesday, different ultrasound guided biopsy. Still really wasn't that worried too. I was just like, whatever, this is fine. And then Thursday they call and it's stage 1 breast cancer, the exact same kind of aggressive breast cancer that Lexi's mom had.
Oh my gosh.
And I was so mad. I was like, this is bullcrap. How can this happen to me? Is Lexi going to lose 2 moms? And you know, all of that. And so that was 16 years ago. I was 31. Mm-hmm. So PRG is 9 years old. So it's not like I walked out of treatment and was like, I'm gonna do this great thing. I walked out of treatment and was like, I hate the pink ribbon. I'm never gonna talk about cancer, and I'm gonna go back to working with inner city kids and being a mom. And so this amazing person that was in my life, I went to treatment with Stephanie Spielman. Her husband played in the NFL. He was a big Ohio State guy. If you're from Ohio, everyone knows Chris Spielman. And I was in treatment with her. And she had the same kind of breast cancer I had, but didn't get the drug I got, because her and Chris basically raised money for this drug called Herceptin. And so she had stage 4 breast cancer, and she lived with that for like 11 years. And so right before she passed away, I went to see her after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and she was in and out of consciousness. And she said, Heather, in like 2 sentences, like she said, don't use my death as an excuse. You know what you're supposed to do. You were going to do the care side of things, and the Spielman Fund will do research. And I literally could not see the road. I cried so hard home from Columbus back to Tip City. And I wrote a grant that night for 3 meals a week for your entire family, house cleaning, rides to treatment, and peer support. And if you live in the grant world, you don't get money unless you have money and a sustainability plan. And I had a pipe dream of $2,000, literally $2,000. And this guy announced it on the Ellen DeGeneres show. He was a billionaire out of Texas, and he wasn't into grants, right? He was into business. And so he liked the business plan. And so I was speaking at UD to young women, and I got out of the car and I had a BlackBerry. I remember this. And I had all of these text messages like, they announced PRG on Ellen show. I was like, what? So our budget was $100,000 and this grant was $45,000, and it had to be matched. Yeah. And so that's how we started in 2013.
Wow. That's fascinating, because even though like I was kind of there around while all of this was taking shape,
yeah,
it's amazing how that story still hits me. And I imagine, you know, for those of you who are watching it, like imagine for a second that you just went through this process of adoption that was met with all sorts of ups, all sorts of downs, all sorts of heartbreak. Like that's just kind of the nature of loving somebody, right? And then to have like the added, you know, the added extra of finding that you yourself are suffering from the same I mean, I imagine when you say I was so mad, I mean, there's only so many words that we can use to describe things that happened in the past.
Right.
But imagine that for a second. Like, mad doesn't really begin to describe it. Like
I was never one of those people that and I'm still not. When I speak in front of thousands of people, I'm never one of those people like cancer was a gift. To this day, if it was a gift, I would still return it to you 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes with all of this other. Now, the silver lining, or whatever you want to call it, is that I really do live. I mean, I live every day. Like, I don't think we know, probably why I struggled somewhat with the pandemic. Don't like to be told what to do, and I do think I live every day because you really don't know when it is your last day.
Yes.
And we are all one cancer diagnosis, one accident, one tragedy away from a totally different life. And this is what so many of these survivors that I am so blessed to know, right? The job is so hard. Like, going to funerals is not fun. Going to funerals for 30-year-olds with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old is really not fun. But like the benefit, the blessing that I get, or that we get as an organization and a community, to know these people is life-changing. Mm-hmm. They never sweat the small stuff. They didn't care, right? They're going to sit on the ground. They're going to play with their kid because they don't know how much time they have left. Mm-hmm. And they live life a completely different way.
I imagine that becomes kind of a contagion too. Like, in the same way, people who take their life for granted can kind of create a culture around that. People who live each minute.
Right.
Like, and I know there's almost some cliched nature around, live each moment like it's your last, but I don't know that many of us get a chance to do the mind exercise of considering like what that actually is. And if you're listening to this, I would encourage everyone watching, coming close to death. Mm-hmm. I know you just said, people say cancer is a gift. I'm not talking about cancer specifically, but considering our own mortality is an exercise that everyone that I know who is achieving at any high level, they have some practice of considering the end, of considering how much time they may not have, and making the most of this moment. Whenever I find myself wanting to renegotiate with myself about the habits that I've chosen to, build my life, I think of things like, I got 2 daughters who are little, and I hope to be there for them in a way that my parents have been for me.
Right.
And that's not going to happen if I spend my life or my attention in such a way that does not honor that. So I want to talk a little bit about, like, okay, so this show is about freedom, and the working definition that we have here of freedom is anything that you being able to do that which blesses other people and brings you joy. And you talked a little bit about that mechanism of just living life to the full, but the actual work that you do is in and of itself extending freedom for other people. Would you agree with that statement? And if so, like, how does that look?
So I always say, like, I mean, the last 2 years, especially, I've been in meetings that I definitely don't feel qualified to be in, right? But I put myself out there because A, I think I can learn from them, and B, I'm so passionate about the mission. And so, like it or not, I know we're all about, it was just International Women's Day, and I'm all about that. But like, realistically, this, most times, no matter how great we come or how far we come in so many other ways, women are the glue that holds the family together a lot of times. And so when you get sick, guess what? You're not like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared of treatment, or I'm so scared of this. You're like, oh my gosh, who's going to feed my kid? How are they going to get to soccer practice? And my husband can't clean the house. No, just kidding. I'm kidding. But I mean, it's the number one. I'm kidding on that. My husband's a great cleaner, by the way. It really is the number one thing. It's the first thing you think about. And if the studies show that might not be the first thing on every other person besides a mom's mind. Mm-hmm. And so I can't, when you have a house fire, someone explained this to me. I explained this to them. When you have a house fire, you're not like, oh my gosh, I should have had 2 fire extinguishers. You don't think about that then because it's too late. So when you get cancer, you're not like, I've got to give $3 billion to research right now, because I'm just being honest, the research isn't going to help you right then. Now, research saved my life in the long haul. So we want to be the first hug. So you get cancer, and guess what? You're going to get 3 healthy organic meals to feed your family, and you don't have to worry about getting to treatment. And we're going to clean your house. And then the peer support is this whole other silver lining. And that has been a blessing with COVID, is now our peer support's national. So anybody can get on that has 2 other daughters that are 31. I mean, I wanted to meet someone that was trying to see their kids go to kindergarten, because I was worried I wasn't going to see my kids go to kindergarten. And so that peer support is invaluable. And then the other thing that's great about PRG is that we're not income based. So we've served the CEO of GE, and we've served, the person that cannot even doesn't have a refrigerator. Last week, we set someone up and they cried and said they couldn't accept the meals because they do not have a refrigerator. Let that sink in. So we sent them a dorm-sized refrigerator. This person's emergency contact is her landlady that she rents a room from. That's her support system. 42% of everyone we serve is food insecure. So the NIH has a questionnaire, 2 questions that you ask, and 42% of everyone we serve does not know where their next meal is coming. And 37% have no way to get to treatment. They're ride insecure.
Wow.
So when I want to complain about being stuck in the house and ticked off that, the pandemic shut everything down, this person doesn't have a ride to fight for stage 4 cancer. It's perspective.
Yeah. This is when I consider what matters, it's those little sacred things, right? Yep. Like you can't get to have the conversations that move you forward if you're worried about your food. If right. There's cancer is like, it's like the executioner hatchet just hanging by its own volition above your head, and you're hoping that the axe doesn't fall. Like, and to that regard, like, a person has no fight against it if they can't get to treatment. If they can't, and sometimes there's holistic treatment, but even that, you need the education. You need to get to somebody who can help you change your habits, etc. But like, whatever the treatment might be isn't the point. The point is 32% is a big number of people when you consider how many people are diagnosed each year. So our big thing at PRG is that, and this is how we've continued, and we have this great culture and this great family, and it's something that I'm the most proud about, is like when we have a fundraiser, when we have our donors and stuff like that, or you see the pink trucks, they'll say, we provide. Like, it's we are a family. It's not Heather Salazar and Heather Salazar's team. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I did this pink truck because we provide rides. Or our pink truck provided 1,100 rides last year, or 1,500 meals. Like, they know and they buy into that culture. And that also gives them a freedom of knowing that they make a difference. And I do believe it's what saved us, because when the economy didn't go so well, or when no one knew what to expect with the pandemic, they were like, well, but we provide 1,500 meals. So we've got to do everything to keep, and that was huge for our donations in a year that was scary, unpredictable. Yeah.
The other crazy thing that's happened a couple of times, which could be a different story for a different day, but through a couple of crazy events, we were able to meet with the donors who created the software for Amazon. They were called Junglee, and they sold it to Amazon and Jeff Bezos, and they worked together in 1998. So right now he's creating AI for mammography, and they are now, through the artificial intelligence, able to detect, it's in like the final stages of the FDA approval to detect breast cancer up to 3 years earlier than a 3D mammogram, which I'm just not allowed to like talk about it with all the blah, blah, blah I had to sign. But, and it's awesome because those people are people that wouldn't be around here. So I don't know if you know this too, but PRG's in all of Ohio, St. Louis, and then San Francisco and Oakland.
Interesting.
Because San Francisco is where the AI and the facilities working out of Silicon Valley, but Oakland is one of the social determinants level of health. So San Francisco is one of our biggest regions, which obviously not super easy to get to, but it's just been interesting. So they've come here and stayed here and kind of helped grow our organization, helped with our IT and software. And so that's how the goal is, that we're a national organization within 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
And now we have this sustainability to do that. With the meals are all from a healthy organic distributor called Sunbasket. All of the rides, we met with the CEO of Uber. So all of our rides now are through Uber Health, besides in Ohio, which we still drive our patients. So Uber provides all of our rides that way. And then we use a national company for house cleaning. So with funding, we can just plug and play and serve all of the people. It's now a funding issue, not a programmatic issue. So that's been a huge step.
Wow. And so that actually brings me to where, tie-in, where do people go when they understand what PRG is and how? I mean, because here's the thing, I don't know anybody who is my age who has not been affected by breast cancer. Quite frankly, I don't know anybody who's 10 years younger than I am who hasn't been affected by breast cancer.
That's what's scary.
And so my first stare down the barrel of breast cancer was when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 10. 11. I might have been 11.
I you were only 10.
Yeah.
Hi. So, that was a little abrupt change, a little abrupt ending. That conversation continued for about 8 or 9 more minutes, and it was great, and we learned a lot together, and I really wish I could have shared it with you. However, the last little bit of that video did get corrupted, so we have fixed the problem so that'll never happen again. However, here we are. So what's going to have to happen, I know, right, is we're going to have to do a part 2 so that you're not sitting on the edge of the cliff wondering what's going on with PRG. It's just a great organization. They're going national in the next few years, and so the sort of help that we described in this interview is going to be available all over the country. So you can be a part of that. You can stay tuned to that. You can be connected with Heather on social media and elsewhere. So I'll put the links for that in below. And as always, build a vision, build a life. Peace.